Well, the haters gonna hate, and the faker's gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna making luck, a Dominion podcast.
All right, Kitty, we're gonna record a podcast, so you need to say goodbye to the internet, okay? Will you say goodbye?
She's a millennial. She'll never say goodbye. Whatever.
You're doing that on purpose. Can you say goodbye? Okay.
Oh, God.
All right. I'll put you upstairs.
Yeah, I think I have been wearing the same, Kohl's line of office clothes for the last, 4 years.
Yes? Well,
yeah, it's been
when
great.
you just want to look good. I get it, man.
Yeah, no, this is, that's usually... No, it's more just because these are what I have, and I run out of laundry. So, people sometimes ask why I'm so overdressed. It's because this is all that's clean. This is all that's left. It's my suit. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's...
We're at the bottom of the hamper.
I think, the dress clothes for guys is kind of like lingerie is for girls.
Yeah, in that you wear it in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because that's all you have.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going with it. Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Yeah, this is where we give relationship advice, and we also learn how to get better at Dominion.
Yeah, but mostly relationship advice.
Yeah.
You with your deck.
And yourself.
Mostly your deck. Yourself, your own deck.
Yeah, the self-synergy of your deck.
It's just you and your hand and your deck tonight.
Forever.
Like that pink song.
Oh, God. So,
this isn't weird.
Yeah, no.
It's not weird.
This is not where I saw this conversation going, but it's where it went, darn it, and here we are.
So, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm
Right.
feeling okay. I'm ready to talk about some Dominion.
Yeah.
I just made some garlic toast, and my wife really liked it.
Yeah, so I actually have some views on what I think the first bread of this kingdom is.
Is it garlic toast?
For me, it's actually a bagel.
Oh, I love bagels.
Now, here's why.
Okay,
It's because the bread of this kingdom actually kind of inspired this episode. So, and it has a dynamic we're gonna talk about in the episode. And this episode, by the way, ends up being about Gladiator and Fortune. So that's what's in store for you. And the preview is kind of like a hole in the bread, so you can see the meat. So that's where this bread becomes a bagel for me.
Okay, I'm in, because I love bagels. Are we talking I don't think this is an everything bagel, because a lot of times those just get a little busy.
Sure.
And they don't properly put the seasoning on the bottom half the bagel. Which is, why would you not do that? Kind of defeats the purpose.
Sure. I mean, it'd be harder to... Well, no, I don't have an excuse.
Yeah, that just seems like a clear mistake. So when you're playing Dominion, don't do that.
Right.
But also, if I'm looking for a bagel, I love Asiago cheese bagels.
Those are my favorite, too. Yeah.
So can we make this one an Asiago cheese bagel?
Yeah, let's do that.
An Asiago cheese bagel sandwich of Gladiator Fortune.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And so to address that, of course, we had rolled into a kingdom last week that we played a few games of in between then and now. And the videos of those games are up online, and in the description of that video, or the pinned comment, you can sort of hear a stamp to skip to where we came to some insight on Gladiator Fortune in that board, right?
Yeah, so last time we were talking about hunting grounds and castles.
Yeah.
And I think Gladiator Fortune ended up being another sort of focal point.
Yeah.
Of where the interesting part of that board lied. So, hey, you want to read some cards?
Yeah, we should probably do that, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this last kingdom had castles, Fool, Ghost Town, Gladiator, obviously split with Fortune on the bottom, Menagerie, Silk Road, Treasure Map, Baker, Highway, and Hunting Grounds. But once more for our audio-only listeners, the kingdom contains castles, Fool, Ghost Town, Gladiator, Menagerie, Silk Road, Treasure Map, Baker, Highway, and Hunting Grounds.
Yeah, so I think I had said I wanted to open with a Fool.
Yeah.
The Fool was good here, and we agreed on that. And then I wanted to open with a Baker, and then you had theorized a few things, but I think you liked a Gladiator open with the Fool.
I did, and before I played against you, I got to play a few games just against the bot. And
Lord Raddington.
The really, really interesting... So, like, the games against a human always feel different than the games against a bot, but this one especially so.
Yeah, the bot never cusses you out.
Right. The bot doesn't complain when it starts to lose. I definitely do that. But, the games against the bot actually cemented in my mind that Gladiator was really good here, and that Fortune was really good here, and that Castles and Silk Road were super relevant, because what the bot does is goes to the most efficient big money route to victory, which is what's usually just buying a province every turn, utilizing some kingdom tools if they're there for that, but it gets, some golds, and just beelines for that.
It also never reveals a card to your Gladiator.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely helps, right,
Yeah.
with the Gladiator thing.
Like, you can kind of pretend you don't have the dollar, but, like, those Gladiators getting trashed is a little harder to simulate,
That's true. But, like, even so, in my games against the bot, I found myself building a lot more to a big deck that assumes it's going to have a Fortune in it. And by the time I have the Fortune and a bunch of hunting grounds and ghost towns, and I'm drawing the Fortune every turn, Lord Raddington has maybe 3 provinces, but I have this amazing deck that is playing Fortune every turn. I end up buying a second Fortune in that deck. I ended up buying like a Gladiator for 10 just to make that happen earlier. And like all the times I did that, I ended up crushing Lord Raddington despite losing provinces like 5-3 or whatever, because I was able to make up with Castles and Silk Road. And then I tried that against Adam.
How'd that go?
Okay, so really interesting dynamic on that kingdom.
Please say I'm better than Lord Raddington.
You're better than Lord Raddington.
Man, I'm 0-3 against Lord Raddington today, so that feels good to hear.
You built that deck that goes for a province per turn, but you built it very differently. So like I was building this deck that both reveals the fortunes and then capitalizes on having fortunes. Lord Raddington just builds this deck that buys a province and doesn't really care if it has a fortune. Whereas a competent opponent is going to still build the probably big money deck that's going for a province per turn and does so earlier than the deck I'm talking about, but is also getting a bunch of ghost towns and hunting grounds so that when fortunes do come up, they're good for him too. So like once the deck I'm talking about has revealed the fortune is better for me than it is for you, but it's not better enough because you get a fortune too, and it's not better enough to overcome the fact that you have like 3 provinces on me by the time it's working.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. So in the end, 2 human competent opponents, I don't think that fortune comes up.
Yeah,
because nobody has a reason to buy the Gladiators.
Right, that's it. So like, Fortune, if it's in front of me, I'm going to buy it because it's a good card for the deck.
Yeah.
And it's such a good card for the deck that I want, if I think that that's going to happen, I'm going to prepare my deck for it by getting more draw cards.
Yeah.
Namely, Hunting Grounds and Ghost Town. I'm going to put more of those cards in my deck instead of things like Province or Silver or Gold.
Yeah. Maybe, like, I think Beggars ended up being better than I gave them credit for, but still.
Yeah, I think you open with one, and sometimes you get a second one, depending on what your draws are like. I think that's a thing for sure.
Yeah.
But really, like, I mean, you don't have to do that, right? If you don't think the fortunes are going to come up in time, then, you don't have to do that. You can just start getting provinces and start greening early, and you can win the game that way.
And the thing is, the big money deck that doesn't just go for the treasures, but instead utilizes the payload from the Lucky Coins comboed with Ghost Towns and Hunting Grounds that has prepared itself for Fortune if it does come up, that's not that much slower than the deck that has just done so with the money tools of Baker and Gold.
Well, yeah, it's I mean, I certainly don't think Gold is all that great here, but, like, yeah, it isn't that much slower, and I think more relevantly, if you're going to build in that direction, the fact that Lucky Coin is around allows you to pick up some more hunting grounds so that you're able to have some staying power and really threaten to get all 8 provinces if your opponent doesn't start to contest you on those. And so that's
or even 6. Like 6 is kind of a tipping point too.
Enough to win the game, but also to end the game if your opponent is going to say, I'm not getting any provinces, I'm going to get my VP from castles and or Silk Road.
Yeah, which we addressed in the castles episode. You never really say that. You never say, I'm not getting provinces just because castles are out.
Yeah, if you go for just castles, you're going to lose to the guy who goes for castles and provinces.
Or just provinces.
Or maybe just provinces and then properly contests you on castles.
Yeah.
You'll lose to both of those people. You need to like actually get provinces to win that game for sure.
And Silk Road really doesn't change that.
Yeah, the gains are pretty limited here, so yeah, I don't think Silk Road was all that fantastic. It's like a duchy for 4, woo! But if you want a duchy for 4, a lot of times like the castles are just better at it.
Sure, I mean the castles didn't come up super often. Like a lot of the time, I'd say most of our games, Humble Castle didn't get bought or gained. Though there are a few times when you end up buying either castles or a Silk Road, but that is really not because those are part of your strategy for winning the game. It's because you had to buy some source of points that wasn't provinces because of not wanting to let your opponent win on his turn.
Yeah.
So, like, they were a replacement for duchies in that context.
Yeah, like if I want a duchy, but I've decided, well, 1 point is just as good as 3 points in this particular context.
Sure.
Then I'll get the Humble Castle because it's better for my deck than a duchy is.
Yeah, or, like, maybe it's 2 or 3 points because some of them are out, but what have you.
Yeah, like it's better for your duchy because it opens up options for you to pick up more castles more profitably. Because the crumbling castle is now effectively worth 3 points to you. The small castle is worth effectively 3 points to you.
I did have one glorious game again against Lord Raddington where I took the castle that gives you a duchy or 3 estates, and I took the 3 estates, and I got Flame's Gift, and I trashed a Hunting Grounds for 3 more estates, and then my Silk Roads were like 8 points each by the end, and I won that game. And that led me to believe that Gladiator was really good here, and I was so disappointed when I played against a human opponent and got destroyed.
Sorry, man. I'm the crusher of hopes and dreams, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Yeah.
It's happened to me before.
Yeah, so that was really a lot of how that kingdom worked out. I think we pretty much called the interaction between Ghost Town and Hunting Grounds, like, meaning you put a Hunting Grounds really early into the deck, because you can buy Ghost Towns to support it at any time, and if you know that you're about to draw Hunting Grounds, you just buy a Ghost Town and your turn is amazing.
Feels good to do that.
Yeah, other than that, I don't know how much else there was to say about the kingdom, right?
So I had one more thing.
Sure.
There was some discussion on the forums. Wandering Winder had said that he wants to try slogging with castles. I want to play more with Wandering Winder, but I didn't find the time for it this weekend. So we may revisit that if those games do happen and there's any additional insight. My money's on the idea that castles by themselves aren't enough points, and if you try and slog, you're going to have trouble hitting province. So I think I'm going to do well there. However, he's Wandering Winder, and it's a slog. So and you lose a lot of games against that.
And to the credit of that idea, if any source of alt VP can slog pretty well, it is castles, because they do still give you money to maybe help you be hitting the province points. And also there's Silk Road, and that's not to be totally dismissed.
Yes, Wandering Winder, like, when there's a board with Silk Road on it and he's playing it, he just wins. Like, it's kind of like with me and Jack. Or, sorry, Jake of all trades. It's kind of like that. Like, it's on the board, so I just win.
Huh.
Silk Road's on the board, so Wandering Winder just wins.
Really? I would love to see that sometime. I hope those games happen so I can take a look.
You need to get your own card like that. Embargo? Eh? There you
yet.
go.
Yeah, no, the embargo. Maybe contraband one
card.
day. Yeah.
Oh boy. Wow, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
You make that happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna become a contraband savant.
I'm already pretty good with contraband.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at not buying it, so watch out, buddy.
I make the right decision when contraband's out, like, almost all the time.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was actually another aspect, though, of bread that we wanted to talk about, and it actually ties back into last episode.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So we talked about Hunting Grounds, and we kind of forgot to mention one synergy that I think is significant enough that we would be remiss not to point it out.
Yeah.
RTT,
Any YouTube comment?
Yeah, also he mentioned it there. He also mentioned it, I think, on the Discord channel.
Yeah.
He mentioned that we missed Lurker and Hunting Grounds.
Yeah, which is pretty powerful.
It's a pretty potent rush, because
Mm-hmm.
it can end the game really fast. You just get a couple Lurkers, you trash Hunting Grounds from the supply, you empty the duchies into your deck, you empty the estates into your deck. Usually the game ends on duchies and estates and either Hunting Ground or Lurker, depending on how things go.
Right, and the funny thing is that we had talked about, Adam had talked about the estate pile out with Hunting Grounds and how it's usually not a thing that happens, whereas Lurker Hunting Grounds, that's a little bit less of a tall order, right?
The duchy pile out and the estate pile out. You can get a lot of points doing that, and you can get them really fast. And the other thing is, like, there usually aren't Hunting Grounds in the supply left for your opponent. So, like, you're taking this delicious-looking resource away from them. And sometimes they don't plan for that. And
it's also, like, pretty hard to stop from happening. We talked about how, like, Rebuild only has to draw one card to do what it wants to do. That's kind of the same thing with this Lurker. Hunting Grounds Rush, you just have to be able to play Lurker. And so that's not that hard to do.
Buying more Lurkers only costs 2, which is easy to do with pretty much any hand.
Right, and having a bunch of Lurkers in your deck does give you a pretty huge degree of pile control in every context, really, especially here when the Hunting Grounds are kind of tied to the estate pile.
And the duchies.
Yeah, and the duchies as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just ends the game super fast. Like, I think uncontested, it ends the game in like 10 or 11 turns a lot of times. That's lightning fast.
Yeah.
You get a respectable point total. You get like 30-something points most of the time if you're uncontested. That's really tough to overcome with just provinces in that kind of a time frame. So
yeah, it's
something you got to look out for.
Yeah. So, Lurker Hunting Grounds, definitely don't pass. Don't ignore that if you see it in a kingdom.
Yeah. So, okay. So, here, I have a little trivia question for you.
Okay. I have a trivia answer.
Yeah. So, like, I have a card and I know the cost. There's 8 coins, and it's got a cost in debt. So, like, if there was, like, a number that equaled the debt of that, like, something equals the debt, the D for debt, like how much debt would it cost?
I think what you're thinking of is 8 equals D.
Yeah, that's the one.
That would be
because
it.
Fortune costs.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So the amount of debt you would take on after buying a Fortune would be 8 equals D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
Lunch
it.
meat.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we worked that in.
Yeah.
So, again, the meat of today's episode is the split pile that is Gladiator Fortune.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually going to talk about these backwards. Like, normally we would talk about the top of the pile and then the bottom, but most of the really significant parts of Gladiator are tied into how it plays around Fortune, and Fortune is the higher impact card. So, we're going to explain Fortune first.
Sure. Let's go ahead and just read both of the cards real quick.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
I'll read Gladiator, and then you read Fortune.
Okay.
Like we're co-hosts. So Gladiator is a $3 action from the Empire's expansion, and that's the top half of the split pile. Gives you plus $2. It says reveal a card from your hand. The player to your left may reveal a copy of that from their hand. If they do not, plus another $1 and trash a Gladiator from the supply. So it either gives you $2 or it gives you 3 if they didn't have the thing, and also trashes Gladiator from the supply.
So, underneath the 5 Gladiators are 5 copies of Fortune, which is a treasure, and it costs $8 and 8 debt, making it the most expensive card in Dominion.
Yeah.
Next to Possession. Haha, not really. Anyway.
Well, it's actually not strictly more expensive than Possession.
Yeah, no.
Because that matters.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm like, is there anything more expensive? Not in a context that matters, no.
Yep.
So, anyway, Fortune. $8 and 8 debt. Very expensive card. It is a treasure that gives you plus buy. When you play this, double the money you have if you haven't yet this turn. So, the first Fortune you play every turn doubles the amount of money that you have generated thus far. Also, Fortune has an on-gain effect. When you gain this, you gain 1 gold per Gladiator that you have in play.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's a lot of payload. It's the most money I think that you are going to generate anywhere in Dominion, right? Pretty much.
Well, I mean,
from a single card.
From a single card. I mean, I could probably bank, but really, like, that's a buttload of money. That's a really good card, and, like, it's one of the most powerful things in the game. And the fact that it costs $8 and 8 equals D, and it's also, like, not available to you immediately. You have to get through these gladiators to get to it. Like, there's a high cost to get to it, but man, is it worth it. Like, it's such a strong card.
It's extremely powerful, and we had addressed a lot of this when in our City Quarter episode, but the idea of it having debt as part of its cost gives it a pretty unique set of considerations for Dominion in terms of gaining it.
So there's a lot of things that apply to debt costing cards.
Yeah.
And some of them apply to Fortune, and some of them are a little bent or broken by that.
Yeah, and I'd say that, like, they all apply to Fortune. It's just that Fortune adds an extra layer to them by virtue of having a hard cost as well, right?
Yeah, so, like, it's actually the only card that costs debt that also costs coins.
Yeah.
So that whole principle of, like, you don't need to hit a price point to do it. Well, you kind of don't have a point.
Yeah, you have to... Well, like, so we talked about the aspects of City Quarter in that episode, and I'm thinking of, like, 3 cards in this debt class that we're talking about as having debt as a really significant cost, and that's Fortune, City Quarter, and Royal Blacksmith, right?
Those are the ones that cost 8 debt, yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones, and when you're looking at picking up those cards, of course, whereas most cards in Dominion have a static cost, you have to hit this price point to get this card. These cards that cost this amount of debt are, over the scope of turns, quote-unquote cheaper if they do something for you immediately to help you pay off that debt, right?
Yeah, when Empires was first introduced, like, I said this in my review video, and, it continues to be relevant. I mean, I was a genius back then, I still am now, right?
So, debt.
He didn't disagree there, so I'm going to take
that.
No,
I didn't actively disagree.
That's pretty neat.
Help me.
So, normally when you buy a card in Dominion, you have to hit a price point and spend money and a buy on it.
Yeah.
And then that's the cost of getting the card. And then, then there's this separate thing that's the effect of the card on your deck. And with debt, you're not paying all of the cost of getting a card up front. And so the effect of that card on your deck actually factors into the cost.
Yeah.
Because you could be paying that debt off using the deck that has the card in it.
And not to belabor the point, but the example we came to with City Quarter was that you buy a City Quarter and take on the 8 debt, and then in the best case scenario, you draw the City Quarter next turn, and your turn is so much better for having done so that you generate $8 more you wouldn't have, making the City Quarter kind of free in a way. Right?
Yeah, and in the best case, like, that City Quarter is so good for you that it at least partially pays for itself in that respect.
Yeah,
if not more.
And so, like, this definitely applies as well to Fortune, right? Because not only is it an amazing source of payload in and of itself, it's also putting golds into your deck, probably.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that kind of ties in with the fact that there's this coin cost, right?
Yeah.
Because in order to put the Fortune in your deck, you have to hit 8, right?
Yes.
That means your deck is making at least $8.
Yeah, and, like, hitting more means you take less debt. So, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, it's at least $8. But let's assume that the next turn you got to play the Fortune, because that's kind of the assumption we made for this whole talk.
Sure.
So, like, you're making $8, and now you drew a Fortune. And so the Fortune is doubling at least $8. So,
yeah,
in the worst case...
This is, of course, assuming you're drawing all that $8 again.
Yeah, and that's important, and we'll talk about that. But, like, you're doubling at least $8, and that's the debt cost.
Yeah.
So, like, if you can draw that Fortune, chances are that debt is going to be very painless. Just because you've added a Fortune to your deck, and that's such a good card.
Yeah, so it brings us, of course, to the question of when you actually decide to put the Fortune into your deck.
Yeah.
And that's where Fortune diverges a little bit from these other ones that we talked about, like City Quarter and Royal Blacksmith, because those cards are accessible to any player at any time, so it's just a matter of deciding, is it time for this? City Quarter's different. It has 2 restrictions. 1, you can't buy them until Gladiators are gone, and 2, you have to be able to hit 8. With City Quarter and Royal Blacksmith, you have all kinds of considerations of, like, am I at the bottom of a shuffle so I have a chance to draw this next turn? Do I have enough draw and cycling to actually get this card yet? Or would I be better served investing in those? With Fortune, I think you kind of just buy it when you can.
Uh,
A lot of the time.
I mean, it's a good card,
Yes.
and if it's there in front of me, I probably want to put it in my deck. That's a true statement. On the other hand, I mean, there is this conventional wisdom with the other debt cards, like the City Quarters and Overlord, I think in particular, has this, where it's like,
Overlord.
oh, it's the bottom of a shuffle. I should get this debt cost card because it maximizes the value I get, and I can just pay off the debt next shuffle, right?
Yeah.
And that's true, because, you're at the bottom of the shuffle, like, you're not relying on hitting a price point then, and that's certainly not true for Fortune. I think a more analogous thing for Fortune is, like, I'm drawing my deck. Because what that does for you, first of all, is it nearly guarantees that, yes, you are going to see that Fortune next turn. You're not measuring time in terms of shuffles. I mean, you are, but it's important that, like, I want to see the return on that investment. It's a huge investment. I want to see the benefit of that as soon as possible. Because it's going to be magnified every turn I play it. I want that to happen immediately.
And failing that situation, let's assume that you're not able to draw your whole deck, and you're just getting close to that. We're still talking about getting the Fortune. That's when we really want to harp on the magnitude of what that investment really is.
Yeah, if I don't see my Fortune next turn, I'm gonna be really sad.
Yeah.
Paying off that 8 debt is gonna be painful.
So to get a Fortune in the first place, your deck is already at the point where it's hitting 8. Also, the Gladiators are gone. So, like, that means half of a pile is gone and decks are hitting 8. That implies something about the phase of the game you're in. You're probably fairly far along, right?
Yeah.
And
probably, like, at least turn 2.
Yeah, at least turn 2.
At least.
So, $8 can buy a province, and 8 debt is money that could have bought a province, presumably, over the course of the next turn or so. So you have to assume when you buy it that you're not only giving up a province, but you're kind of giving up another one, right? Because
that's the worst case in terms of opportunity cost. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's assuming you're not building your deck in other ways, and you're not giving up like other kingdom cards that you'd be putting in.
Yeah.
So, like, for the Fortune to pay for itself in a context of not drawing your deck every turn, it has to get you 2 extra provinces, kind of, that you wouldn't have gotten some other way, or 3 duchies. Right, and that's how you justify having bought the Fortune at the time that you did.
If you're playing a deck that cares about getting points quickly, I mean that's the metric you probably should be using.
Yeah.
I mean, that deck probably only had hopes of getting a single province in a turn. And so if your hopes are limited to that, then, the utility of Fortune is going to be limited, and of course that opportunity cost is going to seem much higher.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that also speaks to the idea that, getting the second Fortune is usually a lot worse than getting the first Fortune.
Yeah, obviously because you can only double once, right?
Yeah, you're never getting that effect more than once in a turn.
Mm-hmm.
But you've just paid... so, like... If you draw 2 Fortunes, you've paid effectively $16 for a card that just gives you a buy, and like I could have bought 2 provinces on that turn instead of that Fortune probably.
Right, and the other
so bad.
And the other idea, I mean, the counter argument to that is like, what if you're not drawing your deck every turn and you just want to draw your Fortune more often, so you put 2 in just to have it more, but like then of course. We have to come back to how late in the game it is by the time you can get a Fortune, and whether or not that's going to have time to pay for itself.
Yeah, so, like, I'm not going to say that's impossible, because, like, if you're drawing most of your deck and you really want to play a Fortune every turn, I can see it being reasonable to pick up a second one.
Keep points.
Yeah,
That'll matter in a Fortune game. But,
totally.
Yeah, so... That's a thing. You're probably not buying a second Fortune. It's very rare that it's ever going to come up.
And I'm not buying that second Fortune with the intention of, I want to play 2 Fortunes in a turn, so now I have 3 buys. Like, that's... Yeah. If you're thinking that, please think about buying provinces instead. You're gonna have a better time.
You're probably going to win the game more handedly that way than the opponent who gets the 3rd buy off his Fortune.
Yeah.
So... All of this comes together really to make the principles of maximizing the impact of deck cards that we have addressed briefly here, and we addressed in more detail in the City Quarter episode, which you should check out as well. It makes them all the more important with City Quarter, maybe more so than the ones that we've also talked about in that same class, like City Quarter and Royal Blacksmith and Overlord. Part of that is because, like, to really get value out of these cards that cost so much debt, you have to be able to draw them. And Fortune is the only one that doesn't provide you with some deck control resource. It doesn't help you draw cards or thin cards in any way. In fact, it puts a stop card into your deck because it is a stop card. And when you gain it as well, you're gaining gold.
Yeah, don't forget to do that, by the way.
Yeah, gain the gold.
I can't tell you how many times that, like, I've been playing IRL and I get a fortune, and I just forget that, like, I need to be gaining golds. I'm really bad about that. You should gain that gold. And also plan for the fact that you're going to gain that gold and maybe double it, and, oh, that's $6 of extra payload.
Yeah, let's talk about what buying a fortune actually entails, because it's not just the fortune. Like, you're getting the fortune, which doubles, and then you're getting... you're putting 1 to 3 stop cards into your deck, right? You're either putting the fortune plus a gold in, or just the fortune, or if you have 2 gladiators for some reason, you're getting 2 gold. And Jesus Christ, I hope you don't have 3 gladiators. I don't know how that situation would come up, but I guess you could put a 4th stop card into your deck that way.
Hey, gold is really good, okay?
Gold is a really good card.
Windfall is an amazing event. Like, almost any deck, if you ask me, hey, do you want to shove 3 golds into this deck?
Sure.
Like, I want to do that.
Yes, but that deck is maybe not gambling on drawing a fortune as often as possible.
Either that, or like you have so many deck control resources that, like, oh, I'm just gonna draw everything. In which case, yes, give me those golds, give me those delicious golds, so I can double them with my delicious fortune. I try to think of a better word than delicious. I'm sorry.
No, delicious is a really good way to put this because gold is delicious.
I had dinner before the podcast, so I'm not like really hungry. And normally I get more descriptive about my food when I'm hungry.
He's got more motivation to think about food.
We were just watching, like, Iron Chef Gauntlet. We were a couple episodes behind. We watched 2 episodes of that before he came over.
Oh, nice.
With Alton Brown.
Is that why we were talking about garlic bread at the beginning?
Actually, no. I just made garlic bread with dinner tonight, and my wife was really into it. I made some really great garlic bread.
That sounds like
Super great,
yeah. So, like...
fortunate gold,
You think about, like...
garlic bread had a golden brown extra... Sorry.
sometimes you're choosing whether... you're going to buy a fortune, and you're choosing whether or not to play the gladiator to gain the gold. And you ask yourself, do I want this gold?
Yeah, good luck hitting 8 without playing that gladiator, brah.
Well, right. And the answer is yes. You probably want the gold.
Gold is amazing. Put the gold in your deck. Who was asking this? Who asked you that?
Look, Adam, I don't ask you about your life.
Of course you want a gold.
Yeah, you probably want the gold.
You definitely want the gold, okay?
Yeah, but it brings up questions, right? About what kind of
How many golds do I want? All of the golds! Sorry.
Well, what kind of deck does Fortune go in is the main one.
A deck with golds in it! No, a deck that draws a lot of cards so you can see your fortune every turn. Yeah?
Yeah.
And if you are gaining golds, draw the golds too. Draw a lot.
But, like, that doesn't mean that if you're not playing that kind of deck, you don't buy a fortune if it's available, right?
Okay, that's true.
So, like, when you ask yourself, what kind of deck am I building to buy a fortune, the answer might not even be relevant. Because, like, if fortune is available, it means one of 2 things. It's really good and you should buy it, just no matter what. Or the game's about to end and you don't care. Either way, what kind of deck you're playing doesn't really factor into whether or not you buy fortune if fortune's available.
Sure, I mean, if I'm looking to put a good card in my deck, and Fortune is one of my options, Fortune's a really good card.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think that's very similar to Plunder, the bottom part of the encampment pile.
I was actually just thinking that as I was writing this outline, is like, you could say all of this about Plunder as well.
Yeah, because, like, it doesn't really matter what kind of deck you're playing. Most decks are going to be better with Plunders in them.
If you see this, probably just buy it.
Yeah.
Unless the game is about to end and you don't care.
Correct, yeah. It's either you're in full green enough where you don't care, or, like, You just buy the stinking card because it's so good. I just want to point out that like both Fortune and Plunder are treasure cards.
Yeah.
And they're really, really, really good.
Yeah, man.
Just want to put that out there.
This is a really insightful podcast,
Yeah.
if you were wondering.
Treasure cards are good cards.
Yeah, they tend to be.
Yeah.
They tend to be how you win the game most of the time. I'd
Yeah.
say.
I know people that have never lost a game of Dominion, and all they've done is bought treasure and victory cards.
Man, I wish I knew some people.
Yeah, me too.
So, like, there are still going to be times where you're considering whether or not to go for Fortune because you're thinking about priorities of whether or not to reveal it, priorities of being able to hit the 8 to get it. So, like, it is worth, like, thinking about what makes Fortune stronger than normal or weaker than normal, right?
Sure. I mean, I've said like 4 times that you can draw your deck and play your Fortune every turn. You have anything else in mind?
Well, there are other deck control resources. So, like, there are times when you can't just draw your deck, but you can still enable Fortune past what you could do without it. Like, so drawing your deck is the best way, but there are other cycling resources. Like, maybe you can't draw your deck, but you can shove cartographers or warehouses or dungeons in to just see your Fortune as often as possible.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Or there's top decking of treasures too. Like there's if you can have an herbalist in that deck, that's actually pretty good because it's an extra buy as well.
Sure. I mean that doesn't jive with drawing the deck, but I see where you're coming from. That does remind me of Mandarin with Fortune, which you think is a troll, but like it's actually not that bad. If you've heard of the Mandarin Capital combo, I'll link to an article that discusses it. Maybe you can link to another one that talks about what combos are. Mandarin Capital is super, super great, and Fortune with Mandarin can kind of be like a janky version of that.
Yeah.
Normally you need like maybe a colony or a dominate on there to actually make it worth going for. But it's a thing you can do. It actually is similar to those Mandarin Horde of Plenty tricks, but is not garbage. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can see this deck happening where you have enough treasures available to you to hit a gazillion dollars every turn to buy a province or a colony or dominate and have $5 left over to buy the Mandarin and do it again next turn.
Yeah, and I did, actually, for the Dominion tournament last summer 2017, I did design a kingdom around Mandarin Fortune.
Okay.
And it had dominate in it, and I thought it was pretty cool. I can link to that in the description as well.
Sure. So, like, those are some deck control resources that we can use outside of drawing your deck that are not as good as drawing your deck, but still pretty good for, better than nothing for enabling Fortune to be all that it can be and more.
That's true.
Yeah. So the other thing, we can argue, I think, that Terminal Draw has a little more synergy with Fortune than it does with most money-focused decks. I think that, like, a lot of the time, big money decks are just as well served by ignoring something like Smithy as buying it. Fortune, I'd say, not so much, because, you know, you have that one high-impact card you want to be drawing. And Adam is groaning.
All right.
He's sullen.
I warned him I was going to go on this rant.
He did,
and here he is. So, like, you said Terminal Draw.
Yes.
And, like, oh, it's Fortune the treasure card. If I play my Smithy and it's my last action, I can draw my Fortune. And that's great, Billy.
Is that really what I sound like? Leave in the comments if you think that's really what I sound like.
It's exactly what you sound like.
That's what I've heard from Adam just now. We'll ask my girlfriend later. Yeah, go ahead.
But I don't care.
That's the best response ever. You make a point about this, and this. Okay, that's a good point, but
it's not a good point.
But
I just don't care.
But I don't care.
I just don't care because, like, Terminal Draw. Like, I don't care about Terminal Draw. Like, why? Why do you? It's not draw. The Terminal Draw is not draw. Draw means you increase your hand size, but you don't decrease your actions. Like, this Terminal Draw thing is just, it needs a village. Without a village, which is what you mean when you say Terminal Draw, without a village, it's not draw. That's not what it is. It doesn't do the same thing as drawing cards is.
I am 100% with you on that point.
And he wanted to poke the beehive, which mission success.
Yeah, no, beehive poked, but it does get you your Fortune a little more often than if you didn't have it. That's the only point I want to make.
Okay, like, really what you're saying is, like, yeah, you can play your hunting grounds and you can have that draw cards, and you can be less sad about your life if you found your fortune that way. Like, good for you, man. I'm happy for you. I'll let you finish.
Adam is really happy for
but
me.
But I don't care.
Adam's really happy for me, but he doesn't care. This is like Kanye West interrupting Taylor Swift at the... I don't
oh my
know
God.
what I'm talking about.
All my life I've wanted to be T-Swift, and you were just T-Swift. How did it feel?
And you were Kanye.
Did it feel... Actually, I've been compared to Kanye West in a serious context before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was playing an online...
It's actually not awesome. I hate Kanye West, but go ahead.
I haven't listened to any of his music. I'm sure it's terrible, but...
It's pretty bad, and he's pretty bad as a person. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, he dissed T-Swift, so, like, I'm just gonna agree with you on that without knowing anything else about Kanye. But I was playing an online Survivor game, and someone was writing a confessional where they compared all of the other contestants to rappers, and they compared me to Kanye West. I was playing Albert from season 23. So in the confessional, it says Albert, and then it has a picture of Kanye West, and it says, Albert is weird as shit.
And
that's
what
it's, and it elaborated on why exactly I was as weird as shit. And they were totally right. I'm weird. I was weird that game.
Right? Yeah.
And I was pretending to I was married at the time, but I was pretending that I was just like dating someone, and I was gonna like propose to them while the game was happening. And so like I was obsessed with my girlfriend, just like Kanye apparently is obsessed with Kim Kardashian. I don't even know who I don't care. Like, Kim Kardashian is terminal draw. I don't care.
I think a lot of people are obsessed with Kim Kardashian, just like a lot of people buy Smoothie when they don't need to, right? So, we've come full circle. And,
All right. We've gotten a little off topic here.
Sure. So, we were talking about the methods you have to maximize the impact of fortune in your deck, things that make it a little stronger than usual, right?
Yeah. Okay. I just need a minute to calm down. Go.
Another reason that you know it's time to buy a fortune, or reasons that you would really like to have fortune revealed, is if you have this deck that can guarantee a high value fortune, and reasons you might not want to buy the fortune and just buy the province instead, or when you really have no guarantee. The last thing you would want is to draw your fortune and play it for no better than a gold's worth of money. Because remember that we're pretty late in the game, and it could have been a province at least. It probably cost you 2.
Yeah, sure. If your deck sucks, doubling suck.
Yeah.
It's not that great.
Well, and remember that we talked about how it needs to pay for itself, not just get you a province you wouldn't have gotten, but probably get you 2 provinces worth of points that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Mm-hmm. Just getting more money than you would have had isn't enough. You have to get enough more money that you get points you wouldn't have gotten. And that's good. Yeah.
Points are, kind of important for winning the game.
Which means that, you really need to be able to strongly suggest, or if not guarantee, that when you play your fortune, it's gonna at least give you 8 money, probably, right?
Greater than suck, yes.
Yeah, greater than suck. Or at least a duchy you wouldn't have gotten. You can kind of not be terribly sad if it gets you with 5 money in a buy you wouldn't have had.
So, duchy is slightly greater than suck, is what we're saying.
Exactly.
Right, good. Well, I'm glad we ventured there. Wait, venture is that good with fortune?
Well, actually,
you play your ventures last, right?
Yeah, so
fortune.
In that case, if you already have your fortune in your hand, you don't want to cause a shuffle that doesn't have the fortune in it. But if you don't, then it could cycle you to your fortune pretty.
It makes your fortune better if you play that venture. Find that delicious copper and double the crap out of it.
But if it causes a shuffle that guarantees you won't have your fortune next turn, that's pretty bad too.
And then I play an herbalist.
So,
guys, we did it.
Well, the other thing you want to think about it, is that is there other plus buy other than the fortune? Because I don't think the fortune wants to be the only plus buy usually.
Yeah, we have some videos about that. And,
we do.
You can just check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth going into the reasons for that. We talked, we're gonna keep coming back to how crucial it is that the fortune pay for itself, and the limiting factor on that is usually time, because of how late in the game it is by the time you get a fortune. So, like, being able to buy 2 provinces a turn is great if fortune helped you do that. But, like, a lot of the time, you need to be able to do more than that to make up for the tempo that you may have lost by buying the fortunes. So having extra plus buy other than the fortune is usually something you want to look for.
Yeah, especially when you like didn't actually want the gladiator.
Yes.
You spent some resources exposing that fortune. You know, it feels bad to like not be able to do much other than buy 2 provinces if you're like down.
Which is a really good transition into the next consideration for whether or not fortune is something you go for. And this is like a more valid consideration of like whether or not fortune factors in at all, which is how do you actually plan on burning through the gladiator pile? Because that's actually a bigger consideration than being able to hit 8 money is like, can you make fortunes available in this game?
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy that like does all the work of the gladiators and like frees up the terminal space to play it and like trashes all these gladiators and maybe gains a second just so the fortunes come out, and then like the opponent's like, oh thanks, buys a fortune, and like their deck is way better. Yeah, that's never happened to you before, has it?
If you want to see me tilt live on camera, take a look at our episode 22, Making Luck Games.
Why do you always have the lucky coin raw?
Yeah, that was me.
You have only 1 copy in your deck. You have it every time.
Yeah, it's not like I can't track your shuffles or anything to know that that's going to happen.
Like it makes a big difference that the pile's at 8 cards instead of 9 cards, and I already have my 6th province. Like, yeah.
Okay, you're exaggerating.
Okay, that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
But not by much.
But it was funny.
You weren't exaggerating by much.
It's funny.
Yeah, no, I tilt left. And by the end but near like the end of the games, after the timestamp I reference, like there's a timestamp in the pinned comment where I have this revelation about the role of fortune on the board.
It's a beautiful thing, really.
And I actually think that you should listen to it because it's pretty telling of like not just the dynamic on this board, but maybe other times you'll see fortune. And then I start games after that. I start playing much better because I start playing with that in mind, right? And I even win a couple, right?
Yeah, like they were actually close.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
They were close, and I think I even won 1 or 2.
Yeah,
so,
I think so,
like,
man.
Yeah, I don't think I ever won going for fortune on that board.
And like, I think it also has like a little bit of good Dominion advice, even outside of Gladiator Fortune. Like, you have to be critical of your own plays. And, like, actively doing that in a game is really good. Like, you have to constantly be critical, because if I mess something up once and I catch it, then I'm not going to mess it up the rest of the game. And you're playing better. So do that.
Well, and, like, I'm going to get entirely off topic of the topic of this episode here to, like, dovetail off that advice and just say, do what I've started doing recently, which is recording your games and watching them back. Like, seriously, get some kind of... I use Shadowplay. Get some kind of software to just record your IRL, your online games, and watch them back and just look at your mistakes. We have started doing a review/coaching series on Dominion, which you should definitely submit to. We have a backlog of submissions we need to get to as well. But... that's fantastic for it, because you might get some insight from other people. You can post them to the Dominion Discord or message them to players that you want to learn from. Like, just
put your contact information in the description of the video too. Yeah,
absolutely. But like, most of all, watch them back yourself too and see what you can like learn, because being critical of your own plays is like 90% of what makes good Dominion players get much better.
Right, like, Jake isn't going to be there over your shoulder when you're in your next competitive match telling you all the things you can do better.
I might be, but, like, even, you shouldn't listen to me.
Sure, right, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
But you are going to be there.
Yeah.
And so being able to catch yourself and improve within that context is one thing. But then, like, there's a lot of garbage.
Really hot in your ear.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me play better.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that will tell you a lot of really garbagey stuff about Dominion, and at some point you just have to learn to think for yourself instead of just believing all of the hot garbage that people are saying.
Well, and like, even if something is really good advice from a really skilled player, a lot of the time you'll hear it in like a really sweeping or strong way that doesn't apply to very many games. That'll just apply to one game, and it applied there, definitely, but they'll say it in a way that's like really general to like all of Dominion, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, like, Dominion is
complex.
Is a game that, like, you know, context matters.
All of it. All the time.
So don't ignore that.
Yeah.
Great. Good
So,
talk.
coming back from that tangent, which I think it was a good tangent, but...
Yeah. Feels good, man.
Yeah, so, like, we have maybe taken those previous factors into consideration, and we've decided that fortune is really good and important this game. I think it's worth a few words of playing around that, right?
What do you mean?
So, all else being equal, like, you and your opponent have built the same deck to capitalize on fortune in the same way, and it's just as strong, and points are about the same. I'd say that, like, that game probably gets decided by who gets to play their fortune more times, right?
Sure, that's a factor.
And so, that in mind, you should be cognizant, before either player has a fortune, this is, of whose deck is in a better position to utilize fortune and play it more often, and then, like, play accordingly to that. And it's kind of like playing around activating cities in that way, like emptying a pile when there's cities. Like, you kind of just want to, before you reveal fortunes, before you trash that last gladiator or buy it or what have you, it's sometimes worth bearing in mind, does my opponent benefit from this more than I do because their deck is more set up for fortune than mine is?
Are you suggesting that you would, like, intentionally not reveal a card just to leave the last gladiator in the supply?
I'm suggesting that if you're in that situation and you're either not going to hit 8 by playing the gladiator and it's going to reveal the last one, or if you are and your opponent has way better control of his deck, maybe you don't play that gladiator.
That seems really sketch.
Well, and if you're on the other side of it, and this is more often the case, if you realize that you're the person whose deck is really set up for fortune, maybe your opponent plays a gladiator and you don't reveal one just because you don't reveal to it just because those fortunes being revealed is super good for you.
That also seems really sketch. Like, I don't think I've ever had a situation where, like, it was... I'm just gonna say I flat out disagree with that. I think if you can reveal, you pretty much always do. If you can just play the gladiator, like, I'm never concerned about trashing a gladiator. Like, I don't want to trash the gladiator.
If it gives my opponent... I would say that, like, if we are down to one of those games where whoever plays the fortune more often has a huge advantage, and me revealing or playing or what have you, a gladiator, will cause my opponent to be able to play a fortune one more time than I'm going to be able to, I'm going to think twice about it.
All right, listen to my sweeping, generalized statement about Dominion, Jake. I'm right about this. That just seems really far-fetched. Like, you could probably invent a situation where that's
Let's do
good,
it now.
but,
Yeah.
like, man, I just don't ever see that actually happen.
Well, at least what I'm saying is don't play gladiators without thinking about it, and don't reveal the gladiators without thinking about it. At least let the thought come through your mind of, like, is this the best idea for me? I will agree with Adam that the answer 90% of the time is going to be yes.
90?
Yeah, 90.
99.55?
I'm not going there. I'm going to say that it comes up more often than... If you look for it, if you have your eye open for it, there are going to be times when you're like, maybe not. Maybe I don't want to trash this last gladiator yet because I can have a little more time to get better control of my deck in the meantime, and then by the time these fortunes are out, I'm going to be able to capitalize on that just as much as my opponent is.
All right, leave a comment if you come up with, like, an actual game of Dominion where you think it was good.
Okay, I'll be on the lookout for it too.
The lookout? Dominion card?
Yeah.
Hey.
So yeah, we addressed you never get more than one fortune, right? Pretty much never. Yeah.
Yeah, not really great.
So beyond that, I think the main thing that we haven't talked about regarding this pile would be Gladiator, right? The card that there are 5 of to get to the fortunes.
Yeah, it's a terminal silver. Sometimes it's a terminal gold.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I mean, that's pretty good. You want money, right?
Silver's really a good card.
Would you ever open with a Gladiator? I think the answer comes down to, are the deck control resources priced at 5 or 6, right?
I think if I have the terminal space for it, I'm probably going to do it a lot of the time. I think if I'm
Sure.
not hurting for the terminal space, I usually pick up the stupid thing. He's not stupid. The moderately intelligent thing.
If the thing that I said before, where, like, you need to hit 5 or 6 to get to, like, a trading post or whatever, if that's true, or if, like, any other context where silver plus some effect you don't care about is a thing, yeah, I think you by it. But like,
It's a fine card.
there's a reason we shoved this Gladiator discussion into the end, because Gladiator really is just kind of relative to Fortune.
Yeah. I think I've said everything that I wanted to say about Gladiator.
Yeah. Are we missing something about Gladiator? Oh, Tomb points. Sometimes it's the only way to get points from Tomb. That's not.
All right, that was cool. Are we
Yeah.
ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Great.
So,
Yeah, we have a kingdom.
Yeah.
I swear we randomly roll these. I mean, we filter out some bad ones, but like,
sure.
this one's got castles in it, so woo, castle.
Yeah, and Fool.
Yeah, and fool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, oh man, I could make some like really terrible rhyme out of that. I will spare you all. Let's
Thank
read.
you.
Let's read the. You're welcome. Let's read the cards in this kingdom, shall we?
Yeah, go for it.
We've got castles, fool, gladiator, trade route, market square, armory, horse traders, archive, den of sin, haggler, and then there's traveling fair and wedding. There's also platinum and colony.
Yeah.
And let's read that once more for our audio-only listeners. Castles, fool, gladiator, trade route, market square, armory, horse traders, archive, den of sin, haggler, and there's traveling fair, wedding, and there's platinum and colony.
Okay, so there are some pretty interesting decisions to make here, and I think most of the decision making comes to the early to mid game. I think the end game is fairly, I don't want to say obvious, but like, it's gonna get to a point where you kind of know what to do. Like you're either gonna be going for provinces or castles and provinces, depending where you are. But like
Colonies.
Oh yeah, the colonies. Either colonies or castles colonies. Probably just colonies, because the castles really can't keep up with that. So, yeah. But how you build to that is actually, there are a couple of decisions to make.
So yeah, there's no village, so I'm looking towards the non-terminals for all the cool stuff I want to do. Fortunately, there's market square for your plus buy. There's archive and den of sin for drawing. So you can build to a decently high payload without the use of any village, and you have your one terminal per turn. Trade route is thinning, it sucks, but hey. I think the most important thing about this board is I realized before that I said that Fortune is the only debt costing card that also has a costing coins and weddings here. I just want you to know that I don't care. Okay? I don't care.
Adam has made it clear that he doesn't care about a lot of things in this episode.
I don't care. I don't care.
Adam's apathy is, like, astounding.
Like, it's right there.
Yeah.
I don't give a crap.
He's never going to buy a wedding is probably what he's getting at here, right?
Oh, no, that's not what I meant. I just don't care that it also has a costing coins.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was very insightful.
I think one of the most important decisions to make here is how many times you get married, really.
Yeah.
That's one of the
I wish
more
there
important
was
decisions you make in
an
your life.
event called divorce, and like you had to buy a bishop to. Okay.
It costs 3 coins and 4 debt, and
That's
it
called
gives you a
loan.
curse. It gives you a curse, and then it gains you an anti-gold. A cursed gold?
Yeah, there we go.
Right. Divorce. We did it, guys. So, there's a colony game, and trade route sucks at thinning. I think you got to do it anyway, so that means I'm opening with a trade route.
You're probably opening with a trade route.
I'm definitely opening with a trade route.
You are also going to be thinking... I think on a 5-2, you actually open with traveling fair trade route to top deck it. Yeah?
Yeah, with a 5-2, if I can do that, I probably will.
I would think about the archive instead, though, because the archive is...
Oh, God, did you just say you want to open archive?
Archive is decent...
Never do that.
Archive's
Listen to my broad, general, sweeping statement.
Archive's a decent deck control card.
It's so bad to open with. What does it do for you on turns 3 and 4? Nothing.
It thins your deck so that the next thing you buy is probably getting into that hand.
Okay, I just want you to think about that for a little bit. You can open archive all you want.
All right, maybe
you do that, man.
I need to give this some thought. Give me a minute.
Don't. It's orange, so that should be your first warning sign. But archive does not do anything for you on turns 3 or 4. Like, put a good card in your deck, like Haggler. Haggler's fantastic. or trade route and top deck it and thin, because that's really important.
Okay, that's the first thing I said. I just want to point that out.
Yes.
Um,
It is, like, that's just way better. Even on a 2-5, like, I'm going to shed a single manly tier and then probably T-Fair and trade route.
I don't think I'd shed a tier. I think I'd be fine with guaranteeing top deck trade route, even if it meant that I'm buying nothing else.
Well, I said manly tier. Okay.
That's true. Okay, so, like...
And I
let's say
will shed that manly tier.
You're getting the 3-4, and I would... There are two things sticking out in my mind, and it's between trade route Fool or trade route Market Square. Trade route Market Square is the safer call, but trade route Fool seems fine as well. Because if they don't collide, I'm pretty happy.
I'm not warm on Fool this game. On a 3-4, I would probably just slam Wedding, pay off the debt later.
The Wedding is valid because it will help you get a lot of Archives and Dens of Sin later.
It's pretty good. I got married
Yeah.
once, and I liked that.
So there's also
I got a VP token.
Oh, nice.
I gained a gold.
Is that your wife is the VP token?
Yes, my wife is a VP token. We're gonna tell her that and see how she feels about that.
So
On a 4-3 though, if I can't get trade route and Wedding in the opening, I'm between Market Square and Silver, to be honest.
I am gonna think about the Fool. Honestly, I mean, like, because
You do that, man. I don't think Fool's great here.
so the other thing I want to think about too is like Gladiator's role here. Do you buy it and when?
Man, terminal space is super tight here, and I want to be playing my trade route like every turn. So
You do.
I'm not super warm on it.
So the when is kind of late, but the if is still a question.
I'm not gonna open with it.
I think like if I get way better control over my deck than my opponent does because of some lucky draws or decisions I've made, I might be getting it in the mid game
That's fair.
because because in that context, Fortune is so much better for me than it is for him.
Yeah, like if you're playing Lord Raddington, I see that happening pretty much every game.
Oh man, I can't wait to play the bot and get a super skewed perception of this kingdom from that.
It's gonna be so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Den of Sin is a very important card because like it's non-terminal draw. I think Archive is going to be okay. I don't think you necessarily want to get to the point where you're drawing everything, although you might. Archive will probably be fine. Archive's probably a decent card in the deck. Haggler is a really good terminal.
I'm going for in the beginning. I'm going for Archive over Den of Sin personally because it thins. It's giving me at least in the beginning.
It doesn't actually thin.
It doesn't thin, but in terms of being able to play my trade route as often as possible, I'm thinking Archive does that better than Den of Sin.
It's good cycling.
Yeah, it's cycling and it's temporary thinning. So like
It's just cycling.
I mean, sure, yeah.
If you get like 6 archives, you can kind of temporarily thin, but like that's just not nearly as good as trade route.
Well, right. So like we're both looking at trade route, or I mean, as Archive and Den of Sin as vehicles to in the beginning play your trade route as often as possible, and then near the mid to end game, you are wanting to use it to play your gold or fortune as often as possible.
Platinum.
Sorry, platinum. I keep forgetting this is a colony game. But yeah, your platinum or fortune as often as possible. So like, I am of the mind that Archive is a better vehicle for that than Den of Sin. However, this isn't something where you're worrying about like an Archive split or anything because the margin is pretty close in my mind, and Den of Sin is also quite a fine card. So if they run out, getting Dens of Sins kind of does the same job. Archive's my first choice though.
I probably get like 1, maybe 2 archives before the Dens of Sin, but I think the Dens of Sin are more likely to run out, and I don't think the archives will.
Okay.
I think Den of Sin spam is going to be
Well,
more effective than archive spam.
If Den of Sin wasn't here, I'd say the archives are definitely running out.
Yeah, it's the only way to increase your hand size.
Yeah,
It's the only draw. Yeah, so of course, I mean, it would be super important. But Den of Sin is much better at doing that.
Yeah. So Haggler is Haggler playing here?
Haggler's amazing in colony games.
It is. And so like it's super good. Like you said, terminal space is tight. If you're getting a Haggler, you're getting it pretty late.
Yeah, when I'm done trade routing, Haggler, I want that to be my 1 terminal per turn. Super great.
Getting Platinum Colony on a turn seems amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Bonkers.
I think
Or
you
like
do get a
Haggler
Haggler.
Den of Sin and still be happy.
Okay, yeah, fair, yeah. So, Market Square trashing to gain gold. It might happen, it might not. I don't think you care very much.
I'm more getting it for the non-terminal plus buy. It seems better than like having to get a T-Fare and spend my money.
Yeah. I think this is again one of those boards where you both players are going to want a fortune, but neither player is going to want to be the gladiator patsy.
I agree. That seems like definitely a thing here.
Yeah. The question though is that if you recognize that you have achieved much better deck control than your opponent, then I think it's okay to become the gladiator patsy.
You're not the patsy anymore because their deck is just not as good, you know?
Yeah, so like if you have gotten to that point, or if like they have just built in a straight money payload, and so like they have consistently high price points in their hand, but and they built that a little faster than what you're doing, but they have lower deck control, then I could say maybe you just say the gladiators or something I'm draining to get to fortune.
It seems unimpossible.
So, castles, I think we've addressed, are probably not playing here very often.
I'm not warm on it.
Yeah.
Armory horse traders, I don't think you're going to see those.
Terminal space is too tight for that.
I don't think Fool's good here.
I'm going to try Fool. If I get it, I'm going to get it in the opener, and
it doesn't seem awful. I just don't think it's very good. I'd rather put a silver in the deck to open.
Well, let us know what you think in the comments as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And let us know how you'd play this out. Would you go for fortune? Would you see castles as a little safety valve for falling behind on colonies?
Hashtag safety valve.
I don't think it is, but let's see.
So get like 10 weddings instead of colony. Super good.
So, we
Thanks
didn't
for listening.
do the raffle.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't... Did we raffle off your DS yet?
Yeah.
We did that a couple... Okay.
Yeah. You won that, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you own anything else?
No, I think you raffled it all off.
Yeah.
Can't raffle the kitten. No.
Oh, yeah, there's a... Oh, yeah, Adam and his wife just got a new kitten, so obviously they have a used cat that they don't need anymore. And so we're going to be raffling off Adam's old cat. So...
Oh, yeah, who won the right to decide the sex of my child?
Oh,
what's it going to be?
My parents. I'm going to ask them.
Okay, great.
So I'm going to have to give them a call.
Nice raffle.
Yeah, and good luck, everyone, in the raffle, and keep making luck. Dominion Podcast.
I need to take my shirt off.
Because we're going to get into theory.
Yes, because we're going to get into theory.
Yeah, some weird abstracted Dominion discussions.
Oh, baby. Everyone likes those ADDs.
Yep, now with 50% more abs. Because Adam's been working out.
Oh, God.
I have definitely not been.